Maze.
And we are live. So, oh wait, hold on. I see someone is here. Hold on. Hey, man.
Hi, how you doing?
All right, nice to see you.
How you doing?
Yeah, happy
Doing
New Year
good.
to you.
Happy New Year, sir.
How you? Happy New Year.
Indeed. So we just started to kick it off. That light is like,
Yeah, I know.
it looks like you're being interrogated.
Well, at least he's
were
not
you?
green.
Where were you on the night of August? Yeah, okay.
What's that?
Well,
Ooh.
that's certainly moodier.
Yes. The Stanley Kubrick film. We're working with the shadows.
It's true. It's a Kubrick movie we're talking about, so we're just.
Oh, that's nice. There you go.
Let's see here.
Hold on, you had something there for a second.
We'll do it live.
There you go.
Ooh,
That's
there
it.
you go.
All right.
I like that. There you go.
All right. So we'll make it work. It's all good. So happy New Year, first of all, to everybody out there watching the show here tonight. It's 2022, and it's good to be back. Episode 78 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf, and we have Naj K. Zaravala, or you can call him Tony. We've got Eric from Hey Internet Herrick here. He's in the house tonight, as always.
I'm here, I promise.
Yeah, he's really here. And then we have a special guest. He drops in every once in a while for the big movies, and I appreciate him taking the time to come out and talk some Kubrick tonight. We've got Stephen Langford. And Steve's got a list of credits that go back to Silver Spoons and Family Matters, and I think he's got Club Dead, and most recently, if I'm not mistaken, Creepshow.
Correct.
Writing and producing for those. So happy
There you
New
go.
Year
Not
to you.
producing.
There you go.
Not producing, just writing.
You're just writing for it. Okay. So thanks for stopping back in, and it's good to have you here tonight.
Great.
About 6 months ago, we had a top 10 favorite horror movie series of episodes. And so we did them over 2 episodes, and 10 through 6, and then 5 through 1. And we had 4 people in the panel, and by a very nice convenience, nobody picked the same movie. We had 40 completely different movies to talk about, which I thought was really cool. I say all that to say this. No one picked The Shining. The Shining was not in anybody's top 10 list, and I'm not, knocking The Shining. I'm just saying, at least for John was here, or Tony in this case, was here. I was here. Bill's not here with us tonight. Neither is Ryan. But nobody picked The Shining. But at the same time, I think you'd have to be foolish to kind of discount it, because it is considered, one of the goats of the horror genre. I think it was Rob Zombie who was saying, like you see people who don't even watch horror, and they're like, oh, I really don't watch any of those types of movies, but I love The Shining, or something along those lines. It's an interesting movie. And it's very divisive, actually, because you've got people who seem to, on one hand, they seem to be talking about they're fans of the book. And then you've got, on the other hand, people who seem to be fans of the movie. And, they have a hard time reconciling, this for this reason or that or some other. But, I saw it this past weekend, and it's definitely worth talking about, and it's worth kicking off the year with for our cold and scary as fuck subthread that we're kicking off for movies that are basically set in a wintertime theme. So if you guys are ready, should we get it going?
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Boogie woogie. one of the more insightful observations I caught, there used to be a television show on Bravo, and they showed it around Halloween, and it was called The 100 Scariest Movie Moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would have 20 movies over the course of an hour, so it's like a 5-hour series. And I think within the top 10 was, of course, The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an actress on there. Her name was Keiko Agena. And I think she's an actress from like Gilmore Girls or something like that. The last person you would think to see on like a horror show. But she said what really freaked her out the most about this movie was the fact that, it wasn't so much that the Jack Torrance character had been going crazy, but that when his wife finally gets to the book and sees what he's been writing, she realizes how long he's been going crazy. And she hadn't really picked up on that. And I just thought that was, a really interesting point when it comes to this. When Kubrick was talking about the theme of the movie, he said there's something inherently wrong with the human personality. There's an evil side to it. And one of the things that horror stories can do is show us the archetypes of the unconscious. We can see the dark side without having to confront it directly. I enjoyed watching this movie this time around. I fell away from it during a couple of scenes, but I understood, at least for me, why it's rated up there at the top. I guess we could start a little round robin. Are you guys? I mean, we're talking about this to kick off the new year, but are you guys fans of the movie?
Yeah, I am a fan. Always been a big Kubrick fan. And I think that's the thing, the hard thing for the fans of the book is that when it's Stanley Kubrick, it is a Kubrick movie. It ceases to become, in a way, the source material. I mean, almost any case of all of his films, it becomes that. And so they're going to be two separate things. They're just not going to be alike.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of that kind of a filmmaker. It's not like certain filmmakers, like take Chris Columbus doing Harry Potter. He knew he had to get it just right. He had to get it just right in the books because that was the task at hand, and he nailed it. But that was what the job was. But Stanley Kubrick would look at a book and he would see something else you didn't see. So it's not going to be satisfying for the author necessarily.
I have to admit, Mike, I was on the side of liking the book and not the movie when it first came out. I had the advantage or disadvantage at the time. I had finished reading the book and then 2 days later saw the movie. In one of those old-fashioned movie houses where it was like 500 people, and you could hear the people agreeing or arguing with it at the time. Now, it took me a while because I think it's because the book was so strong in my head. It took me years later to appreciate what Kubrick did to it. And I think it took me a while to get out of that mode because I was practically militant. No, King had it right, Kubrick had it wrong, type deal. And then as I started watching it as I got older, I saw the story that Kubrick unfolded. I was a huge Kubrick fan and still am.
Yeah.
But it took me a while for that first time because the book
was
a really good movie. I mean,
the
really
book was a great book.
Yeah. And I didn't view it that way. To me, I got real teenage 15-year-old. I know everything, and everybody else is wrong. It took me a while to realize.
It's 1980. Yeah. I hear you. Eric, what do you got?
Well, I was reversed. I saw the movie first. Before I read the book. I didn't read the book until high school. I saw the movie maybe 5th, 6th grade. And I'm not a huge Stanley Kubrick fan to begin with. I love A Clockwork Orange. I like the boot camp stuff of Full Metal Jacket more so than the Vietnam stuff. So he's kind of hit and miss with me. And when I first saw this film, like I said, I saw it before reading the book, and I'm always a sucker for a good ghost story, a good haunted house story, anything like that. So I was already a fan of this before I read the book. And then I read the book and I realized how different it was. But I mean, Mike, you know me, I'm one of those guys, I just want to be entertained by the film. I don't really care so much if the book is, you know, different than the movie, because that's always going to happen. Very rarely are you going to have a book and a movie be so close together. And as I grew becoming a Stephen King fan to begin with, you know, I did realize that I thought I liked the book better, but the more I watched this film, the more it grows on me because of the, not necessarily, you know, it being air quotes scary. I like the characters. I like the creepy imagery. You know, Nicholson, he's hit and miss. You know, he's really good in the beginning, and by the end of the movie, I think he's like a Batman villain. You know what I mean? He's a little too over the top. But I grew to appreciate this movie the more I think I watch it.
It's a really solid flick. You know, if we're talking about Kubrick, and I'll get back to the movie in a second, but just a little bit of history. My understanding is that Kubrick had declined on directing The Exorcist. I was doing a tad bit of internet research, and it said he had declined directing that, and it ended up going to Friedkin. And so he decided, you know, that he still wanted to direct some sort of horror movie. And so he walked into his office with this big stack of like paperback novels or horror novels. And he was going to pick one that he was going to, you know, adapt. And the assistant said that from outside the office, you could hear him throwing the books against the wall. Like he would start a couple pages and chuck it against the wall, and then another one, and then another one. And so he finally decides to go forward with The Shining. I guess there's some also, you know, disagreement. I guess this has been known in terms of the casting. King didn't want Nicholson because he felt Nicholson came fresh off of Cuckoo's Nest. And so Nicholson would be identified automatically with the audience as mentally unstable. And so sort of cheat the fans out of maybe what the twist was going to be, you know, when you get to the kind of the big reveal and you find out what he's been writing. But there were some other interesting people who were considered for the Jack Torrance role, and one of them was De Niro, which I really don't see. But he had two others. He had Robin Williams.
I heard that.
Robin Williams and Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford, that would have been an interesting Jack Torrance.
You know, he could have done that.
Yeah.
He could have pulled that off.
Yeah, I see that in my mind. Yeah, I can see that in my mind's eye. And like Robin Williams, he did that one movie. Was it 1 Hour Photo? That movie, he was just a terrifying character in that.
Oh, he can be dark.
But the person I think that, you know, I would be most curious to see would have been Harrison Ford playing Jack Torrance. That would have been something. And it certainly would have been against type. You know, from what he was now popularized by, you know, Star Wars, and, you know, he had that bit part in Apocalypse Now, but he's not, you know, he wasn't really all that well known. That would have been interesting, though. But the movie starts out, and again, you know, I've been doing this, you know, for a year now. We're coming up on a year, and so I start to notice patterns. And so I'm watching it, I'm sitting down, and immediately I see this huge, wide opening shot right there. These huge forests, this winding road, and the haunting music, and then that little tiny car right there in the center of it. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. You know, these enormous backdrops. And again, you know, we had talked about this before. And I've really thought that this was one of the strongest parts of the movie, was the exposition, the first 20 minutes. He comes at it, Kubrick comes at it immediately in the same way that we talked about before with Robert Eggers and The Witch. You know, you can tell that whoever's in that car is just going to be consumed the same way that the Caleb character was consumed in the woods. The same way we go back all the way into 31 with Browning and Dracula and the size of the castle, compared to Harker, who's that small man just sitting right there in the center. There's this sense that, whoever this person is that's wandering into this sort of, gigantic sort of setting is just completely outmatched. For what's coming their way. And we had talked about it a couple of weeks before Christmas with The Witch. One of the first episodes we did with Dracula, and it opens up right away, and you just see that, and you're like, oh man, yeah, okay. I hadn't really noticed that before, having to watch it for some kind of review. The sense of scale. You're introduced right away to the Danny character, saying that Tony doesn't want to go to the hotel.
Right.
That there's going to be up to 20 feet of snow in the introduction. The warning about the effects of prolonged isolation during the interview with Nicholson. Within 20 minutes, you're finding all this out. The history of drinking and violence. With the Jack Torrance character, and that he's already injured his son, that his wife may not be equal for the task of a troubled situation like this. You get the impression that she's very much, just kind of suffering in silence. The history with the Charles Grady murder-suicide. All these things are set up within the first 20 minutes, and Kubrick's just letting you know right away, that these guys are just. They're doomed.
Well, the thing is in writing this kind of horror, the trick in horror is that you have to trap your characters. And like Nightmare on Elm Street, you can't get away from sleeping, right?
Right.
And so you got to lay it on pretty thick so that you're in a building there's no way out. I mean, it's easy with like Alien. It's obvious.
You can't get off the ship.
Yeah,
right.
But sometimes I had writers come and say they had pitched me some movie, and they said, "Oh, these people go out to a cabin and they turn on the computer, and the computer says I'm going to kill you." And I said, "Well, why don't you just leave?" Car's fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not. They say this dog isn't going to hunt. No. That's the trick of a good horror piece is getting that trap.
Yeah, and this movie does a really good job in the beginning because as Mike was saying, you don't want to go to the hotel because of the snowfall and everything. Well, we've just seen that little winding road, which we know is just basically the only escape from this hotel. And if we're going to get 20 feet of snow or whatever, there's no way in hell that little car that they're driving is going to get them anywhere. And then what happens is with this score is so foreboding in the very beginning. They're going into some dangerous territory. And then I think it's just a great opening where you have these them going into the danger, and that there's going to be no way out once we hear how much snowfall is going to happen. You know what I mean?
And one of the things that I liked about what you were talking about, Michael, with the opening, everything being wide shot or everything being very much from above, one of the things that people talk about in this movie is the sense of not just being trapped, but also the sense of claustrophobia. Because even with the wide, it all of a sudden gets, you get trapped in the house and can't move and get out. I love the fact that they start it wide and then eventually the movie moves in on itself. And
that's true.
When they can't go anywhere, even when at the, the outside portions of the hotel is still tight.
Oh, especially when you get to the maze.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I generally, as someone who likes, the angles and such, that was great. Because even when, they were using, when Jack Nicholson walked through the hotel and everything was wide, and all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, just there's nothing in many of these cases, and this is, I think, the best part of it, the human aspect of, of why they're going to fail. Yeah. Away from the supernatural, which, I mean, everything is, there's this ambiguous argument that goes on with this movie is, well, it's not completely, but I mean, a lot of it has to do with mental instability.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that's also Jack Torrance was actually never a great guy.
No.
And that's the thing is when he goes in this interview and he's very phony.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's not being real at all.
Right.
And it's obvious he isn't.
Mhm.
You get to like the room 237 scene, and naked girls come out of the tub. What's the first thing he does? He smiles.
Yep.
Yeah.
His wife's downstairs.
Mhm.
Yeah, screaming that there's a stranger in the house, in the house that just hurt our son.
And literally, you go 48 frames in, he starts to smile.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a guy is not a great guy.
Yeah.
No, he's not. That's a great point, actually.
Yeah, you're right.
And they sort of advertise. They're almost the stereotypical alcoholic family.
Mhm.
Mhm.
He's the abusive alcoholic. I'm not going to do it anymore. She's the wife, and I want to talk about the Wendy Torrance character a little bit in a second. Sort of suffering in silence.
I think Kubrick was right to hire Nicholson because part of the trick in a horror movie is, okay, you have set up, okay, I'm in an isolated place, all right, and having a guy who you're a little uncomfortable with makes you go, I don't know if I'd want to stay for 4 months with this guy.
Yeah.
Snowed in for 4 months.
Yeah.
And the tiniest of things happen, and you go, oh boy, that one shot. I think it was that one shot where he's just staring at the camera like drugged out, like he's drugged out of his mind.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
no.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So he does the look, and you're going, okay, because the whole point of it's like I want to be scared, I want to be creeped out, and that's what this guy's delivering.
Exactly.
Indeed, and that's the catch of it too, is that you're never exactly sure at what point the hotel starts to interact
Yeah.
Mhm.
with Jack Torrance. Like,
Right.
it's not like The Exorcist where you see, she's down in the basement playing with the Ouija board.
Mhm.
I've been talking to this guy for a while now. You're not exactly sure,
Right.
what's happening. You get a sense that something is off when there's that one scene where, she's like, well, don't be grouchy, and he just rips into her.
Mhm.
Well, still, that's still in the natural realm of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the interaction. I think the first interaction is the bar scene, isn't it?
No, that's towards the end. The bar is towards the end. I think it's after the room 237.
Mhm.
It's after room 237, and the bruises appear on Danny, and she says, "You did this," and he didn't. It's the house. Or that's an interesting question. Well, wait, hold on. Let me get to this. There's a character I want to talk about. There's a couple of characters I want to talk about before we start getting into the plot. And he's the one person who shines a little bit of light in this entire movie, and I love his character, Dick Halloran. Played by the immortal Scatman Crothers.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I love this character. He's like that one little candle flame of light throughout this entire bleak, slog that this family is going through, and
A little flame of light, a shining. You mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But the idea that, again, within the first 20 or 25 minutes, maybe now at this point, you actually start to understand the concept for The Shining.
Right.
It's sort of explained in this very basic way through the interaction between Scatman, who I didn't know him from a lot of mega blockbuster movies. But this conversation that he has with a child,
right?
He's sort of breaking it down in such a way that the audience he makes it easy to understand.
And that I think explaining it to the child and keeping it simple was a way for everybody else who would not know.
Yeah,
it was just a way of also bringing the audience along, gingerly by the hand. okay, this is where, so you know this is there.
Yeah.
Type deal. I like that
Yeah.
a lot too.
You know, we were talking about this. We were talking about this before. I mean, you know, that King at times has been hit and miss with his film adaptations. And we covered Carrie. I think he hit it out of the park with De Palma. You know, and then he went to Tobe Hooper with Salem's Lot. We get to Kubrick here in 80. You know, we go to Cronenberg with The Dead Zone. God knows I love The Dead Zone. But this is, and then, you know, it would get erratic, you know, where we, you know, get into Children of the Corn or, you know,
I was
some
waiting
other,
for that.
Yeah, or Silver Bullet or something like that. But I mean, this is, I mean, it's just a fantastic book. And the way that, you know, it's written for the screen, you know, is really effective to, you know, to movie watchers. You know, within 25 minutes, almost everything is explained to you right there, and just in a first class way.
Well, when Stephen King, I read an article on him way back when I was in college, you know, back in the dinosaur years. He turned around and said one of the things that he likes to do, and I think, I don't want to say Kubrick did it as well, but the more and more I'm watching this movie, I think so too. He likes to explain all the characters, kind of put them in a dark room and then close the door and say, find your way out type deal. And I think that's what kind of happened also with this. You saw everybody. So by the time you're left alone, the first thing I said was, oh, fuck, they're going to get killed. Because, you know, you saw Jack Nicholson showing his character showing signs that he was going.
But it's also what you're doing is you're trapped. He's trapping the viewer as King trapped in your mind. Because in your mind, you're always thinking of how would I get out of it? How would I?
Right.
If you don't see a way out of it, it gets scarier and scarier.
One thing I like about Scatman's character and his portrayal is he's like the complete opposite of Nicholson. Like we're talking about when we first meet Nicholson, he's not a good guy. You believe, excuse me, you believe that Dick Halloran is this genuinely good person, the way he's the opposite of the way Nicholson is playing. Torrance. He's welcoming and warming to the family. He talks to Danny like a friend, not like an adult. He talks to him like a friend. You know, he talks to Shelley Duvall as, you know, as a friend. And what I like about it is I like the way he explains The Shining to Danny, how, you know, he keeps the exposition simple, not just for Danny, but for like the viewers. But he also explains it to him how it's not necessarily a scary thing. You don't understand it, but it's not something to be afraid of.
Right.
You can be at times because, it, you know, like everything, there's good and bad. But that's what I like about it. You know, they're sitting down. He's having this nice, calming conversation with Danny, explaining to him what this power is. And he says, it's not just you. I have it. My grandma had it, and so on.
The first time he spoke to him, technically, was with his mind.
Yeah.
Was when he turned around and said that, you know, we wanted something, you know, to eat.
Yes, ice cream.
Some ice cream. You want some ice cream.
And because I thought that was great because it was a very simple thing, and then let me show you what I just did. And that's why I'm telling the audience too.
And when we know, well, I mean, it goes on. The difference between the book and the movie, of course, is in the book. You know, Dick Halloran doesn't die; he isn't killed. So he goes on to survive, and he plays a later role by the time King gets to Dr. Sleep. But that brings me now to the other major character, Wendy. Wendy Torrance, played by Shelley Duvall, is quite a contrast from the Wendy Torrance in the book.
True.
Here she is, I mean, again, you know, much more of a, I don't know, it's a very submissive kind of character. I don't know that I find her to be a likable character. She's just such a pushover.
Well, I look at it like the scene we talked about earlier is, you know, when he's at the typewriter and he just kind of goes off on her. She just accepts it. I think it's because, you know, she's been a part of this life. You know, of Jack's outbursts so much. You know, okay, he yelled at me and, you know, he called me a bitch or whatever. Well, it is Tuesday. It is, you know, he might as well. It was bound to happen. So I think this is just part of her everyday life. So I don't know if she's necessarily a pushover per se. It's just that this happens to her so much. You know,
the kind of person that wants to keep things calm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He always talks in a very, calm, non-upsetting voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just very, even when she talks to Danny, it's like, it's never, when she tells him to do something, it's always never raises her voice, never
That's
gets
true.
angry. And, the dynamic may be that by acting that way, that kind of cool and calm attitude may be how she neutralizes Jack.
It's kind of
A
like
coping mechanism, maybe.
Coping,
Yeah, it's kinda-
or it's like she doesn't give off the things that tick him off.
Right.
But she's obviously managing all these different things. She's clearly good at managing. She's dealing with, like, the electrical box downstairs. And
she's very smart. Yeah, she's an
Very
intelligent
smart.
woman.
And when Jack Nicholson, when he woke up after Danny went into room 237 and Jack said, "I had a dream, I killed both of you," the first thing she's doing is supporting him.
Yes.
She's not backing away from him. She's not. So there was a support there. It wasn't until she saw Danny hurt and thought it was him that she actually raised her voice to,
That's
Yeah,
That's true.
Because
good point.
we learned that there was an incident with pulling his arm, and we don't know how bad that was, but it sounds like it was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think in the movie it was a shoulder dislocation.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
He knocked some of Jack's papers all over the ground. I guess it was 3 years ago, so I guess that would have made him about 3 or 4. And he was drunk, and he just grabbed the kid so hard he pulled his shoulder out of the socket. So I mean, that's not a good sign.
Right.
This guy is violent towards a toddler.
Right.
This kind of extreme aggression. So yeah, he's not stable to begin with, and so they're put into this treacherous situation, and it isn't long before the wheels start to come off.
Well,
Again, and that comes back to what I was saying earlier. Is it the house, or is it mental illness, or is it a confluence of things? I think in the book, King was talking probably a little bit more about like what Steve was saying, that this wasn't exactly a stand-up person, on the most stable ground. But with the movie, I think you get much more of a sense of the hotel,
right?
Trying to take control of things here.
Mm-hmm.
And once that snowstorm comes and they get snowed in, it really only lasts about another week.
Right.
Right.
The bruise.
You mentioned Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, crazy person.
You didn't ask your opinion. What?
What?
It was computer talking.
No, I said.
Yeah. What was? Go ahead, Steve.
About Harrison Ford is that he played a crazy guy in Mosquito Coast once. This movie, Mosquito Coast.
I remember that.
It wasn't a great movie, but he was great. And I have a feeling that Harrison would have taken the same approach that Nicholson would have taken.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I think he would have been. I think his performance would be in the same. That he would have made a lot of the same choices.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would. I just think that's the material you're going. The attraction is, okay, you're in a house. What's the monster? Well, I think this guy throwing the baseball at the wall is going to be our monster.
Mm-hmm.
Oh crap!
Mm-hmm.
It's really well set up that way.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of the fact that with Jack being injured and the boy being special, the house says, "This is perfect."
Mm-hmm.
Now we have for lack of a better term, we now have the guy who can go give us the boy. Type deal. So that I think it's a combination of both. They're praying PREY on Jack Nicholson to bring the child to him, just like they're reaching out to him through the twins and everything else.
Yeah, the house only has to wait a certain amount of time for things to soften up, and then it can step forward, and that's where you start to meet the Lloyd the bartender.
Yep.
It's at that exact moment where he gets the accusation of abusing Danny again that Lloyd the bartender sort of makes his appearance. And
man, does he look evil in that shot?
Oh,
yeah, he does. And you're never exactly sure, is Lloyd really there? I mean, is this really just happening in Jack Torrance's mind? You know, is he really like he can't really be drinking in any sense that we understand.
Well, you know what you'd have to look at is, if you can find it, is there a drink on the table when Wendy comes in?
I don't believe that there was. I was looking for it and I didn't see one.
No, there wasn't.
No, I'm pretty positive, because it just contrasted and everything just completely emptied out again.
So this is the first where he's talking to the bartender alone.
Yeah.
So when she comes in, there's no drink there.
No.
Okay.
That is that's my recollection. Yeah.
Well, I call that scene. This is where the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like, oh no. Oh,
Here we go.
Because in one sense or another, he's now fallen off the wagon.
Yeah.
You know, he's sort of given into the complete instability now. You know, he's become completely uprooted. And, now the house just has, control of him. The hotel just has control.
Was the liquor still stocked when she came in?
Now, when she came in, everything was gone.
Yeah, everything was empty.
At the bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everything was empty.
Do we know how long Jack's been sober when the movie started?
I think 6 months.
About that, yeah. That's
okay. So
he tells that story to the doctor when Danny collapses, and she's asking about a case history. Has he ever had any injury? And she tells the story, and she's like, "Yeah, and he's promised never to do it again." And he hasn't had a drink in 6 months, even though he had done it 3 years ago.
Right.
He kept drinking for another 2.5 years.
And see, that's the thing of the hotel, like John said earlier, prey, Prey. He's the perfect prey because he's a recovering alcoholic, hasn't had a drink in 6 months. He's isolated.
Yeah.
You can be with the love of your life. If you're isolated with that person, you have no way to cope. Eventually, you're going to get on each other's nerves no matter what. He can't go to his coping mechanism now with the liquor being locked up. You know what I mean? So he's going to start, having a breakdown no matter what.
Well, and that's the whole point that Steve brought up too, is that he's not really honest about his problem.
No.
He's not honest. He's not really honest about, he comes in there and just completely shines those people on during the interview, with the big smile and everything like that. So, I mean, that's an easy thing for the hotel to pick at.
When
what is this thing you're not talking about? Okay, that's what we're going to go right at.
When the manager of in the interview turned around and said, "Oh, well, there was a guy here who killed his family. Oh, that won't happen with me." And he just like that,
he's like a used car salesman. He's just telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
To get the job.
Yeah.
And
then again, the thing is, if you're a writer and you go, oh, you got this quiet place to write, and man, within, I don't know, not very long, the guy's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
They're going, how what's up with this? How would you not be able to, this is, so the whole thing is, and the thing about being a writer, maybe that was just bullshit too.
Well, he wasn't a published writer or anything. He was like a school teacher.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't a school teacher, and then he said he was taking this job to do some writing. But I mean,
I know a lot of people, including myself, who said, "Sure, I'll take the place. I'll watch the house for a month. It'll give me a chance to do writing." I do writing towards the end.
Right.
And it's not because I'm a procrastinator. I'm usually fascinated with this and everything else. And I'm going, "Oh, shoot, I need the deadline." And he doesn't have that,
But
that's my own personal opinion.
See, here's the question, though.
Wendy never sees the ghost. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead, John. No. Go ahead.
Wendy never sees the ghost.
Well, she does at the end.
She does at the end.
At the end, yeah, but she never. And up until that whole, it's like the house doesn't want her.
Yeah.
You know, his father and son. I find that fascinating because not at all. She, boom, towards the end.
In the movie, it's a lot more. It seems to be after Jack Nicholson or Jack Torrance a lot more than Danny. I mean, in the book, it was clearly about Danny. He wanted to shine. Right. The house wanted to shine, and so it was just using Jack as a mechanism. But here's the question, though. I mean, when we get to the reveal and we see that, what he's been writing all this time, it's clear from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and that's why I asked that question earlier. At what point do we know that the hotel or the house was interacting with him? Because he's just got reams and reams of paper with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like from page 1 and then all of a sudden in the third chapter it starts to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this entire time, and that goes back to what that actress was saying. How long he had been going, crazy.
Yeah.
So was he ever, not in the under the control of the,
Mm-hmm.
See, I've always wondered though, even if there was, let's just say there were no spirits, I still think Torrance would have eventually lost it anyways. He might not be chasing them down with an axe or anything, but eventually he would have lost it, and I think it wouldn't have ended pretty for Wendy or Danny by the end of the story anyways.
Yeah, I think he was the perfect guy to be there because he was already on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he was
so mentally unstable.
He was very unstable. Yeah.
Yeah, and he had no tools, no coping mechanisms, no honesty or anything like that to work for him.
And
Mike,
go ahead. We're talking about when you get to the book and see the writing and everything else. Remember, in the beginning, at least it's to me, in the beginning, he was having trouble writing, and then all of a sudden, when you walk in, he's at the typewriter, click, 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 click. So I think he was on the edge, but it just slowly encompassed him as he was there. Type deal was when he went insane. I don't think he came in insane, troubled, yes, but then he slipped over into the madness when he started writing more.
You could have made a very effective story just about isolation without the hotel having been haunted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean.
I mean, I'm not Stephen King. I mean, don't misunderstand me. But I mean, if you had taken the supernatural element out of it, and King did this later on, when he starts to just work with stories about scary people, you could have had something that was extremely effective about a family that just decided to, caretake this hotel, and somebody just goes crazy.
Yep,
they can't hear us.
I did find it interesting that Stephen King said he based it on himself.
Well, he said he had quite a history with alcohol and with drugs, and that probably doesn't promote a great deal of mental stability.
Yeah,
over prolonged periods of time. Yeah. So I guess he's writing about what he knows about. But I mean, I think it must have been fairly early, because by the time we get to the maze shot, which is fairly early in the movie, the very next scene that they cut to is the Nicholson where he's just staring at them in the maze.
Yeah.
So it's gotten a hold of him.
I'll use the bedroom one.
Right.
Pretty dang quickly.
Yeah.
Pretty dang quickly. Steve, are you okay?
Yeah. I'm just getting some more power. That's all.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, everything hits the fan. I thought even creepier than Lloyd, though, was the Charles Grady character.
Yeah.
Who is just straight up frightening. And tells that story about how one of his own daughters tried to take a match, tried to burn the hotel down.
Right.
And so she
had to be punished.
She required quote unquote correction.
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, that's really something.
Yeah.
You know, you've taken an axe to your own children. Yeah, that he was scarier to me than Lloyd.
Well, it's ironic because, like, on some of the research that I was doing, that people were talking about, there's a lot of the stuff with mirrors in this movie, and the bartender looked like the stereotypical creepy guy you would expect in a movie like this.
Right.
And here's the exact opposite, or the mirror image: the other employee who's straightforward and clean looking. He doesn't look like the, you know, when you see Freddy Krueger walking down the street with the knives in his hand, you're like, yeah, he's the bad guy.
Right.
But if you see Hannibal Lecter walking down the street, you don't expect that because he looks normal. I think they were showing two of them as like the counterbalance, or like the mirror one and the other.
Is somebody? Can you hear that in the background? Is somebody like shuffling something, or Eric? Is that you?
No, sir. I hear a little bit of a clicking, though. Yeah.
That's kind of a.
I think it's the hotel coming after us, man.
It's entirely possible.
It eventually drive us insane, and we're gonna go running through mazes.
Well, I'm not running through any mazes, so all right. You know, I mean, it just, you know, eventually the wheels come off, and you know, it turns out the way that it turns out. In which case, you know, Jack Torrance finds that the thing that can finally confound him is trying to catch a little kid, which is not a small. It's not a small thing to happen. Little kids are fast.
And smart, too.
Yeah, and smart. You can't catch a little kid. And so, you know, the hotel loses and Jack loses, and, you know, that's kind of the way that it plays out. That wasn't necessarily, I guess I was disappointed in the interpretation where the Dick Hallorann character gets the axe. I think in the movie he gets hit with a sledgehammer or something like that, and you know, he gets. But
he survives.
He survives. But you know, in the end, Wendy and Danny managed to survive. But I guess for me, by the time we got to that point, you know, where you get to all work and no play, I don't know. Maybe I just thought the earlier parts and the buildup were the stronger parts of the movie, or maybe it was because after 30 years or 40 years, and it's been 40 years. Yeah. You know, I already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I still jump when Wendy starts going through the pages and sees it written, and all of a sudden you hear Jack go, "How do you like it?"
Yeah,
you know,
that's creepy.
Yeah,
that's scary.
The scene where, and again, this is once again to Kubrick's brilliance, when he's riding the Hot Wheel.
Oh yeah,
and he's going on the rug where you hear nothing, and then you hear the hardwood, the build up, and all of a sudden the twins are there.
From the carpet to the floor, from the carpet to the floor.
And you know, play with us forever and forever and ever. Yeah. I mean, that's just, it builds the tension up.
Yeah.
When it gets to the end, and I guess maybe this is one of the reasons why in the beginning I had a hard time seeing the movie when I was a teenager. You saw the character Jack tip his hand. You already thought he was insane. Or slightly insane. So though he gets here, you're not surprised. You know, type deal. Or it's not as a strong surprise. Because I thought that one of the redeeming things in the movie was them in the maze together. You know, running through that in the snow and everything else, and the boy outthinking him. You know, Danny outthinking him. I love that. And, you know, but that's also because the father being completely consumed mentally of getting this, and all he did was just, you know, out trick him.
Yeah, he's lost now. So
and that's one thing that I think is, you know, what I really love about this film, and like I mentioned, like in the very beginning, kind of like with Full Metal Jacket, you know, The build up is great, but then by the end of the film, it just kind of fizzles
Right.
out to me. Like you have it's so good. Like even with Halloran, when Dick tries to come back, Dick shows how good of a person is. You know, not to be like a little bit of a pun, Dick could have been a dick and just threw his hands up and be like, "Okay, kid, you're on your own." He went to help this family. So you think he might, if you don't know anything about this film, let's just say you only know the book, and then just out of nowhere he shows up and boom, we get an axe to the chest. You don't expect that. There's no way he's surviving that wound.
Yeah.
So
he provides it. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So all right, so we got all this build up. Jack's already gone, ape shit. Halloran's dead. We have this build up. Now they're in the maze. He's chasing Danny in the maze with this, in the middle of the winter. And then it just kind of ends. They get in the snowcat, they drive away, and then we just focus on Jack frozen, and then we get, the focus on the little picture on the wall. So it just, we had all this build up and then just kind of peters out. And that's like my only main complaint with this film, I think.
Hold on a second. I've been meaning to get to this. We got a couple of comments. We got Mario Jacobo. He's here and he's saying what's up to everybody. So, hey, Mario, thanks for stopping by. And then we got Ann Crichton, who's saying, hi, I'm a little late. So thanks for stopping into the show, Ann. We appreciate it. Supposedly, there are a lot of scenes in this movie where they would just edit it out of the final cut. And apparently, I think that there was one where he was in where Wendy and Danny made it to the hospital, and the police said that they can't find the Torrance body, they can't find Jack's body, as opposed to the frozen scene you get, at the very end, that kind of thing. But yeah, I agree with Eric. Up until right after the part where there's this glimmer of hope where Dick Halloran is going to return, and you think, well, maybe this guy's going to come back and, save people, and then he just gets it. But yeah, for me also at the end of the movie, it just kind of meandered. I kind of fell away from it, and I was like, okay, fine. But yeah, I mean, that last part, I was okay with it.
Well, there's some people who love that scene. Or that last part, or to see Jack frozen. Christ, how many times has that been turned into a meme?
Right.
Because people like that image, and there's other people who went, "Wait, what?" Which is not surprising with some Kubrick movies, because there's some people who still say that about 2001. Wait, what? When it got to the ending, but the ending, the ending of 2001, I got really excited as I was watching and and still do. But I can see where I don't think I was disappointed at it. It was more just like, okay, let's end. I didn't want to say, he said, okay, let's end this film. We have to have an ending. And
the thing is also,
Go ahead.
The thing that's interesting is that reality is that I think the story is really her story. He really is the antagonist with the house, and really the climax of the story is her driving off in the truck. I mean, in the snowcat. Because really, the thing that you're kind of thinking is throughout is that she needs to get away from this guy. The Kubrick is really pushing the premise that she really doesn't have a really good choice with this guy. And she is trying to make it work as it keeps falling apart. And really, it's sort of like when she makes her final action against him and escapes, that's the climax of the movie. So really, I would say it's Wendy's movie. It's Wendy. She's the main character.
And she saves the
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, when she leaves. It's not, come on. What we wanted to do from the beginning.
Yeah, because it's not like in a case of where antagonist is protagonist, because Jack Torrance really doesn't try to fight it.
Right.
True.
Like I said, with the woman in the bathtub, he's not fighting it at all.
No.
Oh, hey, great, wonderful.
Until she got old.
Yeah, I was gonna say he does when she switches on him.
Yeah, There's one scene where I feel a tinge of pity for Nicholson or for Jack Torrance, and it's when he wakes up from the dream.
Yes.
Mhm.
And just for a split second, you see him as a full human being. Like you see, without any shields up or anything like that, this sort of vulnerable person, and you realize, that person, or that part of him, truly loves his family.
But,
that's
would a normal person who had that dream tell the wife what it was?
Or keep it to himself.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a nightmare. I had a nightmare, and she would take. But why would you say it out loud if it was that? It's
true.
Like
I think at that point, I mean, I think that was his moment. I think that was the one moment he had for half a second where he might have started to become honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hotel doubles down on him by bringing Danny down with the bruises.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way that I saw it. There was one split moment where he actually was honest, and maybe they would have made some sort of plan, but the hotel just wasn't having it by then. And they were like, "No, buddy, sorry, you don't get to change up now. You're not changing gears now."
Well, yeah, I think that he was in it, but that's true. I think though the line that he says just showed as part of his flaw. Is that he would say that out loud. But in that split moment, that those maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds, he was kind of a human being again.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing to look at it too. He might be saying what he needs to say in the very beginning at the interview. He can talk some shit, but he's not. He's a flawed person. I don't think he's a bad person, if that makes sense overall. You might not get behind him because of what he's done previous to the movie, and then as it goes on, of course, his descent into madness, you're not going to get behind him at all. But I don't think overall he's a bad person. The problem is we don't have any time to get attached to him and like him, if that makes sense.
We don't have time to feel sympathy towards him.
Right.
When Mike turned around and said when he woke up from the dream, I agreed. And what's the first thing that happens? Danny walks in, the hotel saying, you're ours. And Wendy yells at him because she thinks Danny was attacked. What's the first thing you do? Walk down the halls and starts pitching and goes into the bar.
Yeah, he goes right into the bar, and that's where everything just completely falls apart.
It falls apart.
Yeah.
God.
It's a complicated movie. It's kind of a complicated horror movie. But I mean, you can see why. I mean, even though that wasn't necessary. Steve, is this in your top 10 for horror?
Yeah, I probably would say so. I think for me, Alien is the number one for me.
Okay.
The reason being, when I was in film school when it came out, there was a special place in the movie theater you're supposed to sit for the perfect viewing. When we as film students, we would do that. And where that point was dead set in the middle of the theater. Not thinking how claustrophobic this movie would be. So when the movie goes, and it's like I'm going, oh, I'm stuck here too. I can't get out. So
how far is the aisle?
That was the scariest experience for me. Like, oh man. Even today, I love watching the first act of Alien. And I go, no, I'm not going to go any further. But I know it. I loved it. It was great.
Well, that's the thing. You got movies that are playing every 30 minutes now, so you never get to a packed movie house anymore.
Right.
No, but
they're showing it 10 times.
It just was like a weird kind of feel-orama type of thing of like, oh, the physical situation that you're in mimics what's going on the screen.
So wait, does this go to your top 5 then? The Shining.
I'd say top 10.
Top 10.
Definitely
Eric,
top 10.
Eric?
That'd be tough.
It wasn't in mine or John, so I mean, I'm just asking the question.
I don't know, because if we're talking horror, like me, Mike, and it's not your favorite, I kind of lean more towards like the slasher and the schlock. But I'll tell you what, I can respect what this does for horror. If it's not top 10, I can at least put it in top 15 because it might not be like scary for me, like hide under your hands type of scary, but the imagery, like I said, the claustrophobia, like for me, like one of my favorite horror movies is The Descent because of the claustrophobia. That's what helps me with this film.
Okay.
And Mike, when I gave my list, when we did the top 10 list, they were personal things, and I kind of went out of my way to not follow the norm. I would say this is The Shining is in the top 15 because for a horror movie, when it's over, I felt disturbed.
Yeah, I think even with my list, I think if I had really been more meticulous about it, I probably would have thrown this in there. But I hadn't seen it for a very long time. This isn't a movie I watch like every year. It's like every 5, 8 years or so. Oh, let's watch The Shining, or The Shining's on, and I'll watch it. But it's definitely, I think, among the top of his film adaptations.
Yeah, I honestly think when it comes to Kubrick, I find Clockwork Orange scary to me.
Yes,
I think due to the violence and everything else as well, but also what was done to him, and he was a villain in the beginning. What they did, for some reason, that affected me more.
Same here.
That scenario.
Now,
so it depends on what you think is scary horror.
I mean, what was it? Almost 40 years later, they came back and did the film adaptation of Dr. Sleep, which is almost an impossible thing to do. To make a movie that pleases the book fans, and I'm not going to talk about Dr. Sleep here, the book fans and the film fans. But Mike Flanagan, I think, I got to give him an A for effort. I really enjoyed that movie.
Same here.
Just about anything that Flanagan does, I'm a
Loved
fan
it.
of. Yeah, good stuff. Steve? Are you a?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I say, Steve, are you a Flanagan fan, or?
What's that?
Are you a Mike Flanagan fan?
I can't say I don't know. I haven't. I'm not aware.
Oh, really? Okay. If you get a chance, Mike Flanagan's good director.
Yeah, I mean it's I remember my partner had a birthday party, and we was at the Magic Castle a few years ago, and I used to work. When I did television in the '90s, there were 100 shows on the air, and then the guy who runs Elementary, Bob Goodman, was saying something at the mic, and he offhandedly mentioned the fact that there were 500 TV series on.
Jeez.
And I just sat there like going, oh my God, this is like, I see shows being canceled that I have no idea they were on.
It's saturation.
Well, but see, here's the thing is that, like how all this kind of happened was when 24 came out on DVD, they were finding in research that people were staying up for 24 hours and watching all of them. That's where binging was kind of discovered. So now basically Netflix and Amazon and all these guys and HBO Max have realized, if we have an addictive product that can't hurt you. So I would not be surprised if there were 1,000 shows on in 5 or 10 years. I wouldn't be surprised. But that's why when you say a name of somebody, I'm going, I'm not necessarily going to know who they are anymore. Because it's like it's you've gone from a world of again all 100 shows and so many movies, and now the number of movies are like how do you keep track of everything?
Yeah,
it's like because basically that they have an algorithm for each of the streaming channels saying, this is the thing you like, so we're going to show you more of this, and they're not going to show you what you don't watch.
Yeah, you can rate thumbs up or thumbs down, and then they'll just target it based on what you approve.
And they know what you're watching, so you're going. It could be like, okay, like if you're not watching black sitcoms, they're not going to send them to you. But if you do, you're going to see a whole other bunch of stuff. It's all built on this. So you go, it's like, it's keeping up with who's who anymore. It's like it's not as easy as it was.
I think from everybody here, the three of us at least would probably recommend checking out Mike Flanagan. He directed Dr. Sleep, which was the sequel to this. With Ewan McGregor. He also directed King's adaptation of Gerald's Game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
He did The Haunting of Hill House. And he just did what I thought was the best piece of horror to come out of 2021 on Netflix, Midnight Mass, limited series. And in these days of never-ending sequels and reboots, when I see somebody who makes consistently, especially a limited series, just so I know that this has 8 episodes and 8 episodes only, I'll try to check that out. So if you get a chance,
I know they call these things limited series, and I really wonder if it needs a new definition.
Yeah,
really, they're movies. They look like movies. What's that?
I said,
They look like it's like we call them limited series, and I'm going, well, it's they're long movies now.
8-hour movies.
Yeah, I mean it's
crack. Sorry.
Go ahead, John.
No, there was. I can't remember the Michael Douglas thing that was on Netflix, the TV show.
The Kaminsky Method.
Kaminsky Method. Thank you. I saw an interview with Michael Douglas after the first season. He says they shoot it like a movie.
Yeah.
Because all the episodes are done in 6 weeks. It's a continuous shot. And I remember a lot of British television did a lot of that too. Because
that's the irony. British television used to do always did 6 episodes, and when the streaming era happened, those shows became really valuable because they were doing this one big movie. What they had done for years, forgotten, and these shows were now the value of them all went up.
Yeah, that's really interesting when you think of those BBC shows like Luther with Idris Elba, the crime series.
Yeah.
It's a 3. He only did 3. The whole season was 3 episodes.
Oh wow!
I mean, when you think of it that way, just one production. You're making like a 3-hour movie or something like that. It'd be 3 episodes, and then he'd come back a year, 18 months later, and he'd do another 3 episodes, and he got like 5 or 6 seasons out of that. That was a great show.
I think it's coming back again.
Yeah.
I would watch it. I'll watch it in a second. That's fantastic crime drama.
Like Downton Abbey was the same way. They were only like 4 episodes, 5 episodes. And
no, they were 10. That was 10.
Oh, were they? All right.
Yeah, so 10 is kind of the top.
Sherlock. Yeah. Yeah. Sherlock.
Sherlock. I think Peaky Blinders, maybe 5 or something like that. That sort of thing.
It's usually like 6, 8, or 10.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd rather go back to the 10 of good shows than 20 of schlock. If you could tell a good season of 8, 10 shows, I'd get a kick out of that as the viewer, as opposed to seeing 10 good shows in a vast of like 24 shows in a season. Because some of them aren't. If you're going to keep it at 10, you're like, all right, let's try to hit them all out of the park. At least, bring our best game. Well, you do bring your best game. You can bring your best game to a shorter season. That's just fact. I mean, I used to do 24 episodes, and that amazes me because I'm finding old shows again. I'm finding older shows. We got home at 6.
What was the first? When did you start? You started when, and you got home at 6.
We get there at 10 o'clock in the morning. We left at 6.
So 8-hour day.
Yeah, so we and that's not the case of most shows, but we were very organized.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that ran the show was sort of like he had that kind of Clint Eastwood thing of like, yeah, we got it. That same kind of thing where you're going, okay, that's the joke, that's the thing, and you didn't waste time.
Mm-hmm.
and then other people will just sit there, not
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like it was actually great, great experience because I did learn quite a bit about how you make decisions and promptly.
That's being organized is a universally applicable quality. Just across the board. There's no place where that isn't of value.
Oh yeah, but I no doubt. We were in Union Station, coming back from Dana Point, and they were shooting at rush hour a movie in one of these tunnels, and they were ushering passengers along. And I'm looking at all the equipment. I'm looking how much stuff is there. And I'm going, I don't know if you really need all that stuff. I think there's like a lot of stuff there you really don't need to accomplish what you're trying to do. It just seemed like really over the top, like But that's the way it is.
Mike.
Well, go ahead.
One last thing, because I never knew this.
Mm-hmm.
Where Stephen King got the name The Shining from was John Lennon. He got it from John Lennon.
We all shine on.
We all shine on.
Yep.
That's where he had instant carbon is what he was talking. And he said he heard that. That's where he came up with the term The Shining.
When he was on, I watched that quick segment from 100 Scariest Movie Moments, and he goes, I was ahead. And he goes, I don't mean that I was like in front of people. He goes, I was ahead back in the day, like back in the 60s and 70s, and he's like drinking and smoking and doing a lot of mushrooms and writing and doing all these sorts of things. So, yeah, okay, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I think that's a good place to close things out here. This is a hell of a movie, and if you, I know I posted that we were going to watch this and that we were going to talk about this today, and somebody got back to me and said I've never been able to watch it from beginning to end because it still scares me. It still scares me. So I was just like, okay, that's a good monument. It came out the same year as another movie that John and I covered, The Changeling.
I still got to see that.
It came out the same weekend as The Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if a lot of people know that.
Actually, I didn't know that.
That's competition. That's serious competition, and if people know both, I think on equal footing. I mean, that's my favorite Star Wars movie, but
same here. And just imagine if Harrison did do The Shining, and he had both Empire Strikes Back and The Shining come out at the same time.
He would have been the king of the world.
Yeah. Right.
Well, he was the king. He was the king of the world, anyways.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this has been a great. I've had a lot of fun doing this today. We were
good to be back
off for 3 weeks for the holidays, but I appreciate it coming out here to talk about The Shining and the cold is scary sub-thread, and it's all good. My thanks to just call me Tony. I'm going to keep it simple. My thanks to Steve Langford for stopping in tonight and talking some Kubrick. I appreciate you, man. And my thanks to Eric from Hey Internet, Eric here. We will be back tomorrow talking about a much newer movie, Josh Lobo's I Trapped the Devil. And that is just a hell of a movie. You want to talk about people that are trapped, Steve? They're trapped. Wow. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much. Everybody have a good night and take care.
Okay.
Peace.
Cheers.